So my name's Fari. I'm the product marketing manager here at Onside, and I'm based in Melbourne. And this is Guy, and he's our head of customer, also based in Melbourne. So today we're going to be talking about our newest biosecurity feature, which is the stand down periods. So we've been working on this for over the last 6 months, and it is a really critical component of biosecurity. We've been kind of developing this over the last 6 months, and we've also been working with some key businesses in the poultry and pork industry as well to make sure that this is a really fit for purpose feature and works exactly the way that you need it to. So let's get started. So biosecurity stand downs, this is joining our basically the software that we already provide for biosecurity. So we have a whole range of features already, and that is a combination of your proactive tools where you can reduce the risk of disease and pests coming onto your property. And then we've also got reactive tools so that when something does happen, because there's always that risk, you've got the tools and you've got the data all ready to go so that you can respond really quickly. You're not trying to find information reactively. You've got it all there ready to go. So we've got a big visitor screening component, and that's through your check-in rules, your check-in questions, the automatic notifications when someone arrives and gives an unwanted answer. Then you've got your movement tracing, that's through the tracing dashboard. Some of you may not be as familiar with that side of the product. We've got our movement tracing dashboard. And so stand down periods, this is the latest feature, and it's joining these other features to really build out a very robust and comprehensive biosecurity software. So, stand down periods themselves, most of you here would be very familiar with how stand downs work. A lot of you would have helped create matrix rules that the industry follows today. And what we are doing with our feature is automating it. So, taking what you're doing already and bringing it into the software so that in a more efficient and effective way, you can know immediately when stand down rules are not being met. And often, people coming onto your properties might not even know that they should be standing down. And so we're raising all that information really effectively for you. So, is there anything else you want to talk about with Sandown's Guy before we get in and have a look at how it all works today?
No, I think I can jump in and run through the actual technology, which is the biosecurity stand down periods. So there's got two elements to this. There is the building of your stand down period rules within the software, and then the bringing to life and operationalization of that, which will trigger based on people moving in and out of properties, whether they're your own or external ones that use Onside, being able to automate and detect and alert when people break these rules. So first of all, this will be very familiar to a lot of you, this concept of the matrix. So there's a few different layers to this matrix, and part of what makes this quite unique is that you can customize it a lot. So at the top layer here, you're seeing all of your company properties, and you can be doing it type to type. So it can be specific types of poultry or pork. You can get down into sub industries there, or it can just be all your dairy properties, whichever ones are important to you. And you can do general rules between groups of properties that sit within a certain segment of your business. But you can also get down to the layer of specific individual properties. So you can say the specific rule between this Swine US property and this Vino Blanco property is a one night stand down. And so within the matrix here, which will be very familiar to most of you, you can set how many nights people need to observe before they can move between these two properties in a specific direction. So on your left hand, you're seeing where the movement's coming from. On the right hand, where the person is going to next. And this can be updated at any time. It's very straightforward. You can just add some time, or you can remove some time, and you can see there's blue highlighting beyond here. That's just to show inherited values, because if you set a rule here that says from the Swine US property to all properties, there's a 3 night stand down. That means that all properties, including these ones, these ones, these ones, these ones, all inherit that same rule. And so it's just a nice visual way to try and show you where some of that stuff's coming from, and you don't have to set every rule independently. It can just inherit rules from some of your more global rules that you've set up. Then when you go further down, you can actually start to set property rules, movement rules between external property types as well. So this is a nice, easy way to be able to say, for example, I want to set a certain stand down period between any dairy farms coming to all of my properties. So Take, for example, H5N1 avian influenza, because it can be a host or different animals like livestock can host H5N1 and spread it around. You might want to start to think broader than just poultry properties and doing rules between them. You can actually set up rules between dairy properties or other types of animals. A common one is obviously between pigs and poultry, so you could set up those specific rules, and then even down into the subcategories of broilers and hatchery, etc., etc. So this is just broadly speaking, any people coming from these specific external company property types to any of our properties, these are the rules. Then you can actually go a level further and you can start to build specific rules between specific companies using Onside. So, say for example, you have a good relationship with your supply base. If you're a poultry processor and all of your supplier contract grower broilers, you might want to have a more relaxed rule between them because you know them, you trust them, and they're part of your general supply network. But then any other broiler farms outside of your supply network, you might have more stringent rules between those. Even down to the point where if you know a specific company may have been affected by a disease like avian influenza, then you could set up more heightened rules between any movements between their properties and your properties. So it can work either way. I think the key thing to note here, which may be obvious, but this will work really nicely between all your own properties because all of them will be on Onside and you can make sure that people are using it when they check in. The other thing is that anyone that uses Onsite external to your company, it'll work really nicely between. We've still got the manual questions and the active alerts from the manual questions to capture all other use cases. So, we'd love to think that 100% of everyone is going to be using Onsite everywhere, but that's probably never going to be the case. So it's good to have those manual questions to still say, have you observed 48-hour stand down between X type of farm and our farm? Or have you been overseas in the last 7 days? And those sorts of questions. I'm going through this pretty quickly. This is going to be recorded and you'll be able to watch it back later on, but feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we go through as well. The other thing to point out here is that you can set override rules. So you can create these override rules for, a specific disease, for example, ILT, avian influenza, African swine fever, foot and mouth disease, whatever it may be. You could have these override rules ready to go that if you do detect a certain pest or disease on a property, you can just straight away apply it. So you could just say over here, I want to add override rule of this outbreak, outbreak XYZ, which is going to now override to 5 nights versus what was in there was 1 night or something like that. And so you can see automatically it overrides this line and puts that more heightened number in there of nights that need to be observed. And so that the reason for this is that you can put it in place as and when it needs to be, and then you can easily just remove it as well, so that you don't have to come back in and manually change everything. If you need to update those rules, it just will put it there for the temporary amount of time that you need it there for. Then you remove it, and it goes back to the standard rules that you'd set before. So that's the setting up of the matrix. Now, operationalizing that, first of all, you set biosecurity contacts, and this is you can have per property or for all your properties. You set them with specific people within your business so that you can have a primary contact for each property if you wanted to get that specific to say this is the person that can approve or deny these visits. This is the main contact that you need to get in touch with and will approve or deny visits. And then you can also send a bunch of secondary contracts because we know that not everyone's going to be available all the time. Someone might be in a shed and uncontactable, or they just might be on holiday or something like that. So you can have a whole bunch of secondary contacts as well. So no matter what, the person visiting, if they break a stand down rule or get one of these notifications, they'll know for sure who they can contact to be able to make sure they're allowed on site that day. All of the stuff, I'll show you the app in a second, but that all comes through into here, which is basically a report of all the high risk visits. And so you can see in here, there's been a bunch of high risk visits that have gone to our different properties in here. And if you click into any of them, so this one you can see was allowed, this one was declined, but this one hasn't got a setting yet. So I can click into that. I can see what the visit was, who did it, what actually broke the rule, what rule was broken. He needed 3 night stand down. He didn't observe any nights. So you can see all that information. And then if you're a person of authority to be able to do it, you can actually come up here and decide whether that's an allowed or declined visit. And so if I decline it, for example, and you can do this in the app as well, which I'll show you, but if you're at the computer, you can decline it and say, risky visit, whatever you want to put in here, and save that. And so what it's going to do is set that status to decline. So you've got reporting on that. It also has full traceability on who's approved or declined what visit, when, and for what reason. So you've got a lot of that information in there. So this is what it looks like in the Onside app. When someone arrives to the property, all this automation is working in the background. So I come to property and say, for example, in this case, I'm going to go to this wine property first of all. I go through the standard on-site check-in. I go through and answer the manual questions, sign into the property, and so all of that stuff is, as you already know in the app, you get this automatic notification to say, hey, you've answered these questions wrong, and you need to contact whoever, and you can just do that directly through the app. But then say I go from that property to another property and there's a stand down period between those two that I haven't observed. As a user coming onto the property, I'm going to get this alert up the top that says, hey, looks like you need to complete a further stand down before you're allowed the property. And it tells the actual date you need to stand down until. And if you click into that notification, it tells you a bunch of details around actually why you've broken those rules or what rules specifically you've broken so that as a person coming on site, you're actually educated as to what the rule is that's been broken. And again, you can call that person if you need to before coming on site. Now, it doesn't actually stop you actually completing the sign in, it warns you. But then if you try to sign in like I'm doing here, it'll again notify and say, hey, hold on, you're breaking a rule here. And that's where it triggers rule alerts to the farm manager as well to say, hold on, someone's just signed in, they're breaking a rule. And so on the flip side, what the manager sees or the site biosecurity contact, they get these notifications in real time. Now, this can either be off the automation, which I'll talk about in a second, or from the manual sign in that you just saw before. And so, as a site biosecurity manager, I click into that notification and it takes me directly to the person who has broken one of our stand down rules and again gives me the why. It says, hey, this is the person that signed in. This is the rule down the bottom that they've broken and it's been flagged as high risk because it's broken one of your matrix rules. And so in here, you can actually decline or allow the visit from the app. So like what we looked at before in the web portal, where you can add that approval status, you can just do that directly through the app because we know that most people are going to be on farm already when they're trying to approve or deny these notifications. So this is an example of declining the visit and the reason why. So we're always capturing reasons to make sure you got that traceability if you ever need to come back to a risky visit that might have caused something, who actually approved or declined it and why. And then you can also change the answer if you need to. So you might accidentally decline it or something. You could go back and approve it if you decide later on that it's actually an okay movement for animal welfare or something along those lines. And so all of that is feeding back into the web portal that we saw before, where you can see whether they've been approved, denied, or have no status yet, and you can do full reporting on that into a PDF. So that's how the technology works in the actual app and web portal itself.
We wanted to go over what makes this the on-site experience and why is this a really unique way of doing it. So, Guy, talk us through the network. What is the on-site network and why is that so important to stand down periods?
Yeah, there's a few elements at play here, and I think starting with that network side of things, we kind of looked at it before, but pests and disease evolve over time, and they don't necessarily care about borders or specific sectors. They're going to go wherever they can thrive, and so being able to be part of a network and a solution that covers all agricultural sectors is quite important. So it's not just poultry to poultry or poultry to pork. It's, for an example, if H5N1 comes in, all of a sudden you're trying to expand your rules out to dairy and beef and all these sorts of other sectors. So being able to have the ability to set rules between every agricultural sector as an option for as these pests and disease evolve is quite important. And then, particularly in Australia and New Zealand, we've got 22,500 properties mapped across all the different industries and 3.5 million movements captured. So, the inherent network that's already been built off the platform of safety, compliance, contractor management, and just the biosecurity we already had will just allow all of this to work seamlessly off the back of it. It's a very simple add-on that just runs in the background. So although it looks really simple, the complexity and what the developers have done an amazing job of is just making the complexity behind the scenes so that what you guys get is just a simple result and a really user-friendly interface. I think the other point here, which I touched on a little bit, is around this auto arrival. So I think most of you would know this already anyway, but we've got automation in the app so that you can choose to switch it on that if you cross a boundary, the phone will use the GPS in the phone to actually know that you're on an on-site property. And so not only will that automate the notification to you to sign in as the person coming on site, but also it helps trigger this biosecurity stand down stuff. So it's pretty common that customers might have staff auto arriving from property to property because they move around so frequently. So even if that is the internal rule, or someone auto arrives and forgets to do the full sign in process, you can still have confidence that your biosecurity protection measures and alerts are there, so that if someone just arrives and they have only arrived to another property but it's breaking a stand down period, it's still going to let you know about that, and it's still going to let the person coming on site know about that and alert them even before they sign in. So even with the automation running passively in the background, you've got really robust biosecurity measures in place to try and prevent something from happening before you have to use the traceability after the fact. And
And
then I
just
think
catching it, yeah, just catching it as
yes,
early as possible as well. So the earliest detection, which is great.
100%. Prevention always better than the cure. And so, from a feature practicality standpoint, it's something we pride ourselves on for just the user friendliness of the app. I mean, we're agri only, and we're very, very dedicated to making sure it's a simple, easy experience for people to use in the field, and just adding so many different points of value, from safety to biosecurity to contact details to mapping, so that biosecurity is kind of just a great outcome of user engagement for daily operations. But also in terms of actually, I think many people on the call are from more of the administration side of setting up all of this sort of stuff and maintaining it, and having to action the alerts. That part is all super simple and completely available for you guys to be able to edit whenever you want to. So, as always, we've got an onboarding team led by the great Connor Wellington, who most of you probably met before. And so we're always here to help set things up and help you administrate stuff. But I think the beauty is that it's so simple, and you guys have full access to edit, change, update rules at any point in time. So if there is an outbreak, or if you change the age of birds in a shed, or whatever the scenario is, and you need to update the rules of movements, you don't have to rely on us, or wait for us to update it for you. You can just jump in there straight away and update it super simply. So I think that yeah, that flexibility and the access you have to customize things in real time is pretty important.
So I've got a question, Guy. Well, just while we wait, in case anyone else does, how does this work if you only have like one property versus if you have 50 properties? Is it just as effective?
It's still going to be effective. I think the more internal properties you have, you obviously have more control over setting those up and who signs in and out. The external properties, we've got a big network, but you don't have as much control over who externally uses it. So even for a single property, you're still able to set all these external rules up and make sure that anyone in your industry that's using it, and you share contractors with, or any people that go between them, it's still powerful for being able to set up those rules and automating that. But as you scale up as well, I think just internally being able to have those rules between your own properties, it gives you almost absolute confidence between your own properties, which is quite powerful, because just what I've seen and observed over the last probably last year or two, really, where we've been seriously looking into this and talking to a lot of different people in the industry, is that there's these rules, there's these matrices, but to actually like get them out to people and make sure people have the real up-to-date version between even just their own sites with staff, contractors, whoever, can be quite difficult. So I think, yeah, being able to automate that in the background so that it all just works the way it should, and helps educate people by letting them know if they do break rules, what they're breaking, and so on. It just gives you that added level of confidence that your biosecurity practices are working really well within your own network of properties.